History has shown us that anyone can be beaten, including the very best in bodybuilding. Arnold with his 7 Mr. Olympia titles was beaten by Sergio Oliva. Lee Haney with 8 Mr. Olympia titles was beaten by Samir Bannout in 1983. Dorian Yates was beaten by Lee Haney in 1991. Ronnie Coleman was beaten by the entire Mr. Olympia lineup in Helsinki in 1992, before ultimately dominating the stage with 8 Mr. Olympia titles. Later, Ronnie was beaten by 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler in 2006. Jay Cutler himself was also beaten by Dexter Jackson in 2008, whom he would get revenge on the following year in 2009. Even Phil Heath himself was beaten in his first 3 Mr. Olympia appearances, placing 3rd, 5th, and 2nd before becoming the reigning champ. Some may argue that these guys were not in their peak when they were beaten by their rivals, such as Arnold when he was beaten by Sergio, or Lee Haney when he was beaten by Samir Bannout, or Ronnie Coleman when he was beaten by Jay Cutler. This might be true to some extent, but I'm talking about the defeat as a theoretical concept, whether it is possible to happen to anyone or not. The answer is yes, anyone can be beaten. I think the more important question is the following. Is there anyone currently competing who is good enough to beat Phil Heath? Kai Green was defeated 3 times by Phil, and it's obvious that his physique has flaws, such as his weak traps and forearms. At this point, I think it is safe to say that Kai is not interested in beating Phil anymore. Dennis Wolf has many weak points that make beating Phil impossible. His lats insert high, and there is nothing he can do to change that. From the front, he looks just fantastic. When he turns around, the lack of mass in his mid and lower back is impossible to ignore. There is also the issue of his calves. One is very small, and the other one is almost non-existent due to what seems to be nerve damage. Phil is just too complete for someone like Dennis to beat. The guy a lot of people lately seem to think has the best chance at beating Phil is Big Ramy. He is enormous, but not as complete as Phil. Ramy still needs more back and calves. He still needs more muscles maturity and conditioning, muscle separation and detail. The fact remains that Phil destroys Ramy in the conditioning and the detail department. And being Mr. Olympia means having the best total package. Just being the biggest guy up there won't be enough. So can Phil Heath be beaten? The answer is yes, he can be beaten. But is there anyone around good enough to beat Phil Heath? In my opinion, I don't think there is anyone good enough to beat Phil Heath nowadays. But after all, you never know when someone is going to make crazy improvements and suddenly start dominating people who used to dominate him. That was all for this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and many thanks for watching. Have a nice one.